Why, it's the young prince, Bambi. You know, just the other day, I was talking to myself about you, and we were wondering what had become of you.
They may be animated animals, but you probably know people exactly like them.
Remember me?
I'd like to tear his gizzard out.
Why, Patch, where did you ever hear such talk? Certainly not from your mother.
I'm thumping. That's why they call me Thumper.
The distinctly human touch in these animal characters came from the loving hand of Eric Larson.
I always refer to Thumper as being that 4-year-old nephew or that 4-year-old kid that somebody had, and everything Thumper did, though he's a 4-legged animal, had the personality of that youngster. And these are the things you try to do, is to try to get in those linear drawings a personality and development that's honest and sincere and believable.
Eric is one of the 9 old men, Walt Disney's pet name for his supreme court of animation. As the other animators retired, Eric stayed on. Today, he's passing on his 50 years of knowledge to a new generation of Disney artists. Eric Larson's lifetime of learning and teaching comes alive in the Disney Family Album.
Growing up on a ranch, you're very aware of animals. They're part of your life up to the time you go away to school, and a very important part of your life. Something human in almost everything we do, a human personality, a human attitude toward things.
Eric originally came to Los Angeles to write an adventure serial for a local radio station. At the advice of a friend, he submitted some sketches to the Disney studio.
He says Walt's looking for people. He would like to build his staff in anticipation of doing the classics in feature length. And you are, in a way, a writer, and you're, in a way, an artist, and you have some creative ability. Why don't you come and join us?
Eric joined, and at the perfect time. Disney animation was about to blossom.
Well, I think when I came here, they were just finished up on Three Little Pigs. And that, of course, was for the time, it was so far out in front of everything, and it had a message to convey. And we began to realize that what we wanted was some personality development, and the Three Little Pigs had quite a bit of that in it.
The success of the Three Little Pigs inspired other Disney cartoons in which animals had human characteristics. Eric worked on one of these, Cock of the Walk.
I had the pleasure of doing all the chorus girls. And the challenges were very great because of the camera angles. It wasn't the drawing of the chickens that bothered me, because you get to know them pretty well. They were chorus girls. We became more concerned about personalities and getting that kind of thing on the screen. Now, to go with that, the same kind of approach came into the study of effects. We came out with Old Mail, which was a beautiful thing effects-wise. The wind effect, the use of raindrops that had not the hard outline feeling to them, but a real feeling of rain. cloud formations which were soft and moving, and they went from real heavy clouds to light clouds to blue sky in such a subtle way.
The strides made by the Disney artists in personality and effects were the prologue to something greater, the first feature-length cartoon, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
We began to break through on personality, Walt knowing that when he came to features, he was going to have primarily good personalities on the screen.
As Disney assigned his artists to various sequences in Snow White, it was no surprise that the country boy, Larson, was asked to animate the animals.
I didn't realize that when I got on the Snow White, I'd be having maybe 10, 20 animals on one page, trying to move them around in a composition that would be interesting. The animals were cleaning up the house. You've got all of the basic things that you do to clean up a house, don't you? Now you've got little animals that are going to do it. What can they do? All right, they sweep. Well, there's a lot of people who like to sweep things under a rug instead of picking them up. So these little guys start to sweep things, the dust under the rug, the dirt under the rug, and Snow White calls them on it. They're all embarrassed, just as a person caught with his hand in the cookie jar, you know. If you look at the deer in Snow White, you'll find that they were almost sacks of wheat. I'm not going to be able to draw them very well, but this basically was what we had. And we had not reached the point where we were concerned about the anatomy that the deer has.
But for Bambi, Walt wanted the animals to be as realistic as possible without losing their human character.
We had classes with the young deer there, so we could, just like you'd have a life class for a human figure, we had a life class of deer. But these were the structural things that we worked over and over, and he just drilled us and drilled us and drilled us to understand what the anatomy, what the bone structure of these little guys were.
Eric also used analysis of anatomy to improve another character, Thumper the rabbit.
Thumper?
Before we got on to Bambi, I don't think we were paying too much attention, for instance, for the frontal bone of this rabbit. Look how positive that frontal bone is. Look how his eyes sit on the side of that frontal bone rather than out in front of his face. So you begin to feel that you wanted to be, in our drawings, we wanted to be aware of that shape.
I'm thumping. That's why they call me Thumper. They call me Thumper. Thumper!
What we did there with the deer, we did with dogs on Dalmatians. Again, it gets down to structural analysis of what a dog really is. Until we came to an understanding of what the anatomy was under, or what the bone structure was under this whole shape, we just weren't getting dogs that had a charm to them.
Charm is a characteristic you can't analyze. But Eric Larson's characters had plenty of it.
Whatever those puppies did, it was something that someone in the audience's kids had done at one time. They wanted to see television, or they were hungry. They wanted something to eat. Their emotional things, their emotional attitudes were the attitudes of youngsters. Get down. You're blocking the view of the television set. You know, I can't see.
Lucky, get down.
parents. Again, you were trying to reflect back at the way your parents treated you. Pongo had no qualms about allowing one of the puppies to sit on his head and while they were watching television. And now it was about time to go to bed, and Mother would take over and tell them it was time to go to bed. And you treated these pups just as if, well, they were youngsters in a household.
Ready? We'd better get these little nippers off to bed if we're going for a W-A-L-K.
We want to go too, Mother. Can we, Mother, can we? We never get to go.
Go along, children. Bedtime.
But we're not a bit sleepy.
In Pinocchio, Eric lent his unique charm to another family.
Well, for the most part, I was developing Figaro. He was say a 3 or 4 year old kid that had a mind of his own. Cleo was the nice little sister that Figaro didn't want to have anything to do with, so you had a nice, typical family play, perhaps. But Geppetto had them around because they were part of his life.
Good night, Cleo, my little water baby. Figaro, you say good night too. Go on.
In Song of the South, Eric drew on still another side of human nature.
A bear that could lock into only one thought process, and you've met people like that.
How do you do? How you come on?
What you doing up there?
Then, of course, you have the rabbit, who's a good schemer, that's for sure. And he was a con man, really.
You know, you'd make a mighty fine scarecrow, Brother Bear.
Thanks.
How'd you like to have this job?
Oh, yeah. No. I couldn't take your job.
No, that's all right. You...
Wonderful.
Oh, no!
What
you doing?
Howdy, bro. Thanks,
Get out of my trap!
Hey.
In Alice in Wonderland, Eric captured human condescension in a caterpillar.
Well, the caterpillar was a person who just was suspicious of almost everyone and everything. And he had to have a word from Alice as to exactly who she was.
Who are you?
Well, I hardly know, sir. I've changed so many times since this morning, you see.
I do not see.
Well, I can't put it any more clearly, for it isn't clear to me.
You? Who are you?
With Mr. Toad, Eric portrayed the righteousness of an innocent man.
Probably one of the best sections of that particular picture, Mr. Toad, was the defense of himself in the courtroom. As he struts down the stairs, you picked up immediately an attitude that was defiant and so positive in his own thinking that everything he did was with a strut.
Winky, do you recall an incident that took place in your establishment last August the 12th that I was a party to?
Oh, yes, sir. That I do, sir.
Well, then, just tell the court what actually happened.
Well, Governor, you tried to sell me a stolen motor car.
And the vultures in the Jungle Book, I kind of enjoyed. You know, I hated that assignment when it first came up. And I thought, gosh, what am I going to do with these jerks? But I enjoyed it very much when I finally got onto it. Again, they had to act like birds. They had to, there was a minimum amount of gesturing or that kind of thing. You had to get an expression and body attitudes. But they became personalities.
Okay, so what we're going to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
Look, Flaps, first I say what we're going to do. Then you say, I don't know, what do you want to do? Then I say what we're going to do. You say what you want to do. What we're going to do, what you want. Let's do something.
Okay. What do you want to do?
I think the voices played a big part in that, which quite so often happens, you know. If you get a good voice, why, it's a pretty good springboard.
All right, you guys. Lay off, will you?
What's the matter, Peg?
Oh, can't you see the poor kid's scared enough already?
One of the most memorable voices to spring from Eric's drawings belonged to jazz singer Peggy Lee in Lady and the Tramp.
She wrote the song, she sang it, and the way she sang it was a great inspiration, but also another great inspiration was the way she walked, because she had pretty nice movement. And these are things that you try to pick up from the human being and translate into
Influenced Eric was no simple cartoon character.
I always felt this about Walt. He would never allow anybody to pull him down to their level. In other words, TV and a lot of the things that are coming out now are dragging us down from our tradition to this. And I feel it, so why don't I say it? But look, Walt, when he decided to go into color in his shorts, he wanted color. It was better. It was a higher standard than black and white. And the guys in the business moaned and groaned, "You're going to break us." And Walt says, "Okay, if it breaks you, all right." But he says, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to get that much nicer thing." Now, when he started the parks, why couldn't he just have gone out and done a roller coaster and places where people would play dart games and throw rings? He comes up with, built on the cartoon characters, he comes up with Disneyland. He would never allow himself to be pulled down to a base. He was always up here someplace, trying to pull people up to him. I know that's a heck of a challenge, but he had the talent to do it.
Walt also created an environment at his studio that Eric never forgot.
I found that when I got here that you hid nothing. All these people, talented as they were and at the top of their profession at that time, were so anxious to have you know everything that they knew. And they would talk to you about it. You could ask them questions. They would sit down on the board with you and diagram what they were trying to tell you. I felt that this exchange of ideas was the whole thing the studio was being built on.
Today, Eric builds on that foundation. As head of Disney's animation training program, he guides young artists through pencil-drawn animation tests like this one.
First of all, this whole business is really pantomime business. And caricature is a very strong point. Caricature doesn't always have to be real broad and wide. It can be underplayed as well as overplayed, you know. So whatever character you're going to use or do, be sure you analyze it first and find out exactly what that character is capable of doing.
I'm going to do a ballet dancer. And the reason is why, as Eric mentioned earlier, is because I know that. Well, I dance and I can visualize it. And we need to do something that you can imagine in your mind, see it already before it's on paper. And that is something that I'm very familiar with. Dancers are basically very often shy. They have trouble speaking in public or on stage. They use their body, that is their voice. They spend most of the time in front of a mirror, and they're constantly watching themselves. And so I'll be trying to get across how vain, yet shy, dancers are.
Well, I'm going to do a dog, so putting on his pants. So the first, I think, it'd be better if I had a pair of pants, but you get the pants, he's going to turn around, pick up some pants. I think the first leg will go through fine, no problem. Puts the next one down. I think that'll work. Puts this foot in. If it doesn't catch, the body will come forward, and that puts him into a hopping sort of a thing. And you'll see him react to it somehow. He'll be confused or mad or whatever.
Did you get
To help young animators better understand body language, Eric often uses a mime. The mime performs in silhouette to highlight the body's outline.
Well, fear, like everything else, I guess, has to stem. You feel it right from your foot, the bottom of your feet, up into the top of your head. But then we would probably try to put emphasis on that. We would try to get a feeling of a quiver, a quality of shake that would be in there that would suggest an additional visual feeling of fear. The cruelty comes out, I think, of course there's several different kinds. I think the cruelty that the fox and the bear exhibited when they danced around the tar baby, making fun of him, enjoying, teasing the little guy. He was helpless. I think that's one kind of cruelty. Another body action would simply be the approach of a character to the victim, the feeling of being bent over and ready to annihilate him the moment he could get his hands on him. Hands are, of course, so very expressive and so very difficult to draw. It's the final statement of what the pose is. The hand, even if I were to admonish someone about something, and I would come forward to say, don't you ever do that again. But if I use my hand and I say, don't you ever do that again, my expression on my face would convey one thing, but this, again, is a physical thing, and you'd better look out.
The police are everywhere. I want the job done tonight.
And where do you think you are going?
To tell the boys we sailed through the tide, sir.
You will go ashore, pick up Tinkerbell, and bring her to me.
If it's pleading, they're extended and out in front of you.
Brother Fox, I mean, whatever you do, Brother Fox, whatever you do, please, Brother Fox, please don't fling me in that brown.
If we're mad, that hand is usually clenched, and it's giving out a warning.
Sentence first, verdict afterwards.
But that just isn't the way.
Always on
your ways, Your Majesty.
Well, in love, most of our characters, like Cinderella, I think we've had to use the whole body and another character to indicate it. It's been a very physical, visual thing with the tenderness of the prince as he...
Oh, my goodness.
What's the matter?
It's midnight.
Keep in mind always is that there...
Eric Larson has spent a lifetime bringing life to drawings. For these young artists, he's the key that unlocks the secrets to 50 years of Disney animation.
Eric was the person that I first met when I applied for a job here. And Eric, to me, is just the answer to everything. And he can help you with your drawing, or he can help you with why you can't work that day. You have artist block. Eric, I can't draw. I haven't been able to draw for a week. And somehow he has a way of working you out of it. Basically, whenever I need help with anything, I come here.
He always reminds me of just the fundamental things that I tend to forget. You know, it's like animation's so complex and everyone, how many drawings are in there and stuff, but Eric always comes back to, like, what does the audience perceive?
The fact that he stayed here all these, he doesn't need to be here, but it's his love for what the medium can be, and, you know, and what he sees in us as people and what he can give us that keeps him around.
Working with the younger animators has been a great lift. It's part of the studio. And to see a new staff developed, and they are developing fast. We've got some wonderful young people coming along. This has to be a source of satisfaction. And there's something about young people that helps to keep you young, or helps to keep me young, even though I don't look it. But the spirit is there.